Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinus Palace just west of Orlando, Florida. I am in the Extreme Studios with the young 20-something Professor Pixel. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're continuing our television coverage of Hannibal Season 1, Episodes 9 and 10. This is the Bryan Fuller Show based off the Thomas Harris novels, starring Mads Mikkelsen, Hugh, Dancy, and a few others. And Pixel, I think when we left off, but the past couple episodes, we've talked about a lot of different themes. You know, I had this big idea of this theme of, how the family unit gets put together, even if it's dysfunctional, people still want to fit in, to use the line from American Psycho. But my immediate thought on this first episode here is this one opening gambit scene is what made me think of why somebody needs to watch the show, because I haven't seen it in 12 years or whatever it's like since it's been on television. Damn, this is a good opening bit here with a totem pole of bodies on the, it's not really a beach shoreline. It's more of a lake shoreline where they're at. And, man, what a way to get going. But I tell you, everything up to this point has been good. We've had some great episodes, some filler, some whatever. This is where this season 1 becomes what the name of its show is, Hannibal, because they really dive into him rather than focusing on Will so much here too. And it's very delicious. What's your initial take?
Yeah, it looks like it could have been a nice day out of the beach, but some bodies got in the way. These are two very interesting episodes. Because where we left off, we have had some time away from thinking about Abigail and everything, really.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No, especially with this episode. After we go ahead and we get to see Will pretty much imagining this one's a little feels a little different to me, with his swish swashy I'm imagining myself effect that's going on here. It feels a touch different. He fully steps back and the world completely fades when you go ahead. It might just be a technical thing that they did, but when he goes ahead, he imagines himself killing the last victim, put him on the totem pole. After that, he just completely blacks out and wakes up where? Waiting in the reception area of Hannibal Lecter's offices.
I think the whole opening thing here is obviously they put like this gray filter on or whatever like that, like to give you that dream quality, plus the back and forth little swish sound to slow it down. So, okay, we know what that means. Okay. But I just got to tell you, I really appreciate the fact they took all these legs and arms on these body parts and roped them together. And the only issue I might have had with this, and I don't know if it's something that's going to come up with the remainder of the season, is in this particular case, as beautiful and as disgusting as it looks like the old school, really heavy telephone pole types with rebar thrown through it and all these body parts put together to make like this giant body, not body, because it's not like a Wicker Man thing. It's just a totem pole with stuff put to it, but it's done very ornately. And when I saw the rope tying the pieces up, and they actually don't shy away from going from the very base of it all the way up to the very top where we see the fresh kill the guy's face at the top, which signifies something, right? It's I thought of butcher's twine, like if I'm making a chicken or the Thanksgiving bird or something like that, or if I tie it up or whatever, I'm like, And I just thought, God, it's so convenient that there's just always all these fucking serial killers, within 2 or 3, 4 hours drive of Washington, D.C. for a TV show. But it's convenient, isn't it? But we're going to get a little bit of a surprise for this episode, for at least I popped hard for it once we get into that angle. But yeah, the whole thing that I going into here is a surprise. I thought Hannibal is doing a good job here with this back and forth. There's only so much trauma I could take before it's like, fuck you, shut up, stop talking or whatever. And I think Hugh Dancy does a good job acting and portraying it. He's not a bad looking dude. He's got a nice physique, but he comes across as a bit of a wuss. But that's the whole point of the show, is that if you're not convinced by now of the back and forth between them, after this episode, it's going to be very clear what the hell is going on. That's one thing I really appreciated about it. But I think here, just the whole take of it is, and I just want to say this now, as you continue from the scene on, is that I mentioned before, one of the things I thought about some of the writing is that whatever serial killer issue that they're dealing with, the philosophical nature of what's going on there is really a highlight of somebody's relationship, particularly Hannibal and Willis, not necessarily always, but definitely in this case, if you look at Jack Crawford as like the father figure. So he's in here with Hannibal, and Hannibal's kind of giving him the business, kind of being firm, saying, hey, I'm your friend. I don't care about these other lives. You're dissociated. What's going on? Take it from there, sir.
Yeah, no, after that, we go ahead and we do get to see Abigail for a little bit. We get Abigail going ahead and talking about, oh, well, I'm feeling the guilt of all this, and she's with a group, but then all of a sudden she is starting to see things, and the people around her are the women that got killed instead of her. And that is obviously going ahead and having an effect on him. After that, we do get Will going back to Jack and saying, oh, well, it was all the bodies and everything. It's fine. And he can clearly tell that something is up, that something is wrong with Will. But that's still cut back to Abigail, who has Freddie Lowndes with her. We haven't seen her in so many episodes. I haven't even thought about her. Yeah.
What do you think's in this scene here that you're going to describe with Freddie Lowndes in here talking to her? What do you think Freddie Lowndes' genuine motive is?
Money.
You think so?
Payday. Absolutely. She wants to write a book because...
She doesn't want to write a book. She wants to tell Abigail Hobbs a story.
Yeah. But it's a payday. That is what it is. And she tells Abigail that too, because Abigail's anything that she would have gotten with her parents passing, any inheritance, gone, because the families have filed wrongful death suits against Garrett Jacob Hobbs' estate. And yeah, so we're pretty much, she doesn't have anything. And does Freddie Lowndes say, well, you can get some money if you tell the story.
Mm-hmm. I love these two scenes. The writing is 100% tight. And this is what I mean by multiple levels of things going on during an episode. So we know what Will's going through. And I just mentioned the fatherly figure of Jack Crawford kind of almost in a way seems to me here, because he's certainly the power figure, right? He's the man. He's in charge. And we'll get more of that later too, by the way, in this episode and the next one with him. But when he's sitting there going, is there something I should know? And he's like, no. It's like, if there is, you need to tell me. And I mean, Laurence Fishburne, I've said this before with an episode or two with his wife that we haven't seen recently. This one's got cancer. So they put some of these things on the back burner. I appreciate that when they pick up, like in this episode, they really do pick up, because it's very clear that, okay, we're going to have to revisit Will going, drowning deeper, as it were, or whatever, right? He seemed like he was almost a little stable lately, but he's definitely not. We saw how he might have been making sweet, sweet love with his associate, which that'll come up here in a minute, because the whole thing about this scene is that when he goes and he talks with Freddie, or before he talks to the FBI people with the Freddie Lowndes scene that you're talking about, the thing to me is that I almost think the actress portrays Freddie Lowndes as somebody that, yeah, she's a journalist after a fast buck, but she kind of does care when she takes a moment and thinks about stuff. And I felt like her portrayal here sitting down with Abigail was that way. I don't know. We'll see. But the scene that got really interesting made me go, oh man, they're not letting off on the gas here as far as getting into the deep shit here, is that we've seen on a few of these cases in these episodes where Will's actually going over the current crime scene factoids with a small group of people in the FBI. They're specializing in this field, because he is the teacher there. He's a special guy for the FBI. He's not an agent per se, but he's going over that. And they're constantly, hey, look, if I was a production designer, I was a director of this episode, putting that totem pole up there, I would show this thing as much as possible, right? So I just thought that was kind of cool. But then Alana Bloom walks in. She's like, well, I don't want to interrupt you. He's like, well, what do you mean? And she comes in there and basically gives a story of like, I wish I could have stayed that life. So it's not implies they weren't sexual. They didn't consummate their relationship. And she basically says, yeah, I've got one foot on the side with you, one side others, because, and I really honestly, because most women aren't this way, but as adults that really have a strong connection, I appreciate the blunt level honesty here. She's like, you're unstable.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow. But he knows it. And then they just kind of hug. So she's like, I can't do this because, because of that at this point or whatever. But the point is psychologically, she's putting herself out there and being visible, which is very difficult to do in relationships. And that's all a necessary component of it. So whether you call this foreplay, it's really not, but they do have feelings for each other. He does look at her because remember, he could look at somebody in the eye because he's borderline on the spectrum with some things or whatever. And I thought, wow, they're really leaning into fucking up mentally here. And just the look this actress has of sadness and just watching him, it just shot so well because he's not talking to anybody there in the FBI. He was just picturing in his head. And I thought that's a great way of showing us of that rather than really telling it, because then later on, once the emotional impact of as a viewer that we see of this gets there, that's kind of neat. And then the scene here that to me with Abigail Hobbs following immediately afterwards, where he and Lecter are in there talking to her, she's basically letting them know, hey, she wants to do it. And I like how, what's the line, you're giving up our privacy as well as yours. And, they're both trying to look out for each other. But here's the thing, in case we've forgotten, which I don't know if they showed it in the previously on Hannibal quick review, they should have shown the fact that Hannibal is the one that killed the guy and basically asked Abigail Hobbs to trust him because they couldn't find the body. It's been disposed of.
Well,
and she has a great line that shows her smartness where she says to Will, hey, just because you killed my dad doesn't mean you get to act like my dad. And I'm like, fuck, this is really good acting. Abigail, this actress is really good. This is just strong stuff. What were you going to say?
Well, the thing is that Hannibal didn't kill the guy. It was Abigail. Abigail stabbed him.
Well, you know what? You are correct. She technically did the killing, but he went out on a limb to help her to deal with it, which we'll find out how it happens, right? Of course, I'm trying to say that right now. But I just thought this was just a great scene. Every scene right now has been a banger. There's been no fluff. There's been no slow down, speeding up stuff. This has just been 50 miles, 60 miles an hour, red line all the way here too. Because we do see covered in, it looks like ice and snow and it being moved away. We do see a body getting chopped out or something, or at least the hint of it if you weren't watching. And then,
no. That's what that is in the distance. They're uncovering the body. The body of what was his name? Nicholas Boyle is uncovered, and the FBI finds it. We do get to learn a little bit more about the totem pole, and
they've got a diagram. I love this stuff. That's where I nerd out on it.
The connection between the latest kill and the first kill, and they have to go ahead and try to figure it out. But Jack is more concerned with, hey, we found Nicholas Boyle's body, and I want Abigail to identify it. But you already have a positive ID. Yes, but I want to see what she says, because he thinks that Abigail has something to do with it. And you get Will like, this is ridiculous. You can't do this. And he's like, well, go ahead. And I want Alana to observe. And so what do? They bring Abigail in. They uncover the body, and he starts asking his questions.
What did you make of, and I forgot her name already, hot Asian chick starting to talk in the background to him and all the whole background play here? What did you make of that?
It's the same thing that I have in the rest of the show. I'll have more to say about her when we get to our next episode. But here it's just, she's kind of just background. I'm glad she's there. She doesn't really do anything for the episode for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they, like a lot of shows that are out there today, they have so many characters in them, they almost have to remind you of who they are and what the relationships are, but they do a good job of picking up where they left off before too. The one thing here that I thought was very engaging is when they go into Jack Crawford's office to kind of talk about it, and Jack says to Will, "Hey, I have this issue because I don't trust your ability to be objective." And basically, they all think it's a horrible idea to bring Alana Bloom, not Alana Bloom, Abigail Hobbs in to ID this body of Nicholas, right? And of course, we know that Hannibal's up to no good. So it's fun watching not the people that are having the immediate conversation, but the other people's reactions to what's going on. So Hannibal, when he doesn't want to say anything or lead anything on, doesn't look directly well. It just, you can see him contemplating how he's going to get out of here. And this is probably one of the best scenes in a great episode of scenes where Alana and Abigail, she escorts Abigail in there to identify this body. And if you just watch Abigail looking at the corpse, Jack Crawford pulls the sheet down halfway through the torso, and she's like, "Can you identify the body?" Goes through some questions, and he, in his gut, he's like I say, a dog with got a scent of something. He's not letting up. He feels that she, at the very least, is holding something back, and he doesn't know what it is, but he wants to squeeze her forward. And she's like, "Well, could you cover him up?" And he just says, and this is great. This is the acting, not part of it. This is the directing part of it that makes the acting, everything so much better. Where they're cutting back and forth here, where Alana's like, "Can you cover him up?" And he just kind of sticks his hand out, like, "No, that's not happening." And he's just calmly talking to her. "Hey, this man was gutted with a hunting knife, but you knew how to do that, right? Because your father taught you." And she's getting pissed, Alana is, or whatever like that. He's like, "Then you can leave. You're here by invitation and by courtesy, Dr. Boom. Please don't interrupt me." And I'm like, I've got like the big time boner going on here in terms of power play, because that's how you do it. Controlled, confident, eye contact, not blinking. And as he's finishing his sentence to her, he's talking, saying something, and then his eyes turn over. This is top notch acting. It does not get better to this. He does what all good investigators do. He lets the subject talk, because he's like, "Well, where did you go?" Because he's spraying a trap on her. He's getting a baseline reading on her. Now he's trying to get her to talk more, to see if there's some discrepancies in what she's saying, because people can't cover lies up if you know what to look for. And so one of the things we had heard earlier in the episode is that she escapes the place that she's at for walks and comes back. And he's like, "Where did you go?" And so one of the big things is when you're lying, you got to say no, and you also got to nod your head like side to side. No, that's the physical and the verbal part to it. So there's these clusters that you get non-verbally, and people that know how to read lies of body language look for that also with the baseline too. But this is where I think Abigail Hobbs is a character. I go, uh-oh, this actress, because she let's be honest, for real, and I'm not knocking her, when she looks kind of like really weirded out and her hair is messy, she's kind of hot, crazy energy. When she's like this, she does such a great job of looking innocent and all that too. And she's even able to like tear in one eye only on command, whether they use that special drug or whatever. It's beautiful, because two girls are in there, and this black guy's confronting them with his dead body, and she doesn't really answer the question about being involved. And he says to her, after she goes through this big lengthy explanation about where she goes and what she does, he's like, "Yeah, you still haven't answered the question." And when they walk off, he's just looking at her. I'm like, this is just, I'm telling you, man, this little scenes like this, even if I don't remember a lot of the specifics, just going, I know there's an episode that's got a totem pole. I know there's one where this happens. Rewatching this all the time, it's like even better than the first time I watch it, because Lana comes back and she's like, whatever. And they say the professional stuff politely, even though they're upset. Do you believe her? I believe she's damaged. And he's like, "What makes you so sure?" And her line is, "Because any reservations I have about Abigail Hobbs aren't the same as like Hannibal, because he has no reason to lie about any of this." So there's this blind trust. I'm like, are seeds being planted here now? Because I'm telling you, Laurence Fishburne is just grade A, top tier acting. This scene, I'm just looking at it, and we're like, really going basically for the last act here, but this is what's driving everything. And it's just absolutely phenomenal. I've been ranting here for a minute or two, because that whole exchange is really, to me, the meat and potatoes of this episode. Even though the next scene is Abigail talking with Hannibal, but let me let you interject your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, no, because we get more honest conversation about what Hannibal thinks about her potentially telling the story to Freddie Lowndes, and like, well, we went ahead and we covered up the body, and then you dug it up. How am I supposed to trust you? Because that's what he wants to, because he sees himself as a father figure for her. And she's saying, no, well, God, if I do this, I get to tell the story my way, and I get to go ahead and control the narrative. I survived the test that the FBI just did, and we're going to be fine.
But you know how she does that though with the line? She says something along the lines that Hannibal said earlier about when they were first talking with Will and her, and they were talking about this. They're not saying no. They're not doing the initial parent thing of like, oh, you're a teenage generally better, or because I said so. They're having an honest, frank conversation, which is how you build a rapport with somebody. And it doesn't mean you get what you want, but I've always appreciated what I've seen in the show so far. But Hannibal basically says to her, well, if you open that door, you can't control what comes out of it. You know, other things can happen. Because basically he's like, shut the fuck up, put a lid on it, right? If you look at it from the other perspective, like with all the trauma that she's been through, she even says back to Hannibal, and she gets a little pissy like she just did with Jack. So now she's standing up to the two most powerful men in her life. She'll probably do it with Will here, I'm guessing soon. She basically puts those exact same words in his face and says, well, hey, I don't care that they found his body or like that. I've moved past that. And to your point, they've asked me all the questions. I've passed the test and everything. So I'm going, this girl, this girl is smart. She's emotionally very intelligent. And even though she's been through a lot of trauma and everything too, and just distraught and all that, it's really great because the one of the coldest things here is when, Hannibal is just staring at her and he's not blinking. He goes, you betrayed my trust. I deserve more than that. It's not bullying. It's threatening in a way, but it's threatening in that it's not a posturing, because he walks right up to her and he says, I need to trust you, Abigail. What if I can't? And I'm like, fuck, this is so good. I'm sorry. Yeah. But yeah, it's so good, man. It's so good.
No, it is. I mean, it is. It is what's keeping us engaged. But I actually do want to talk about the case this episode, because we do get
I haven't given a shit about, because like total pull, bunch of bodies, that's cool. But boy, I love this act. Go ahead. But
no, I love this scene because we go ahead and we get the connection, the first kill that they track down of the serial killer, and the last kill. There is a connection indeed. Turns out that the first man who went ahead and got killed, he had a wife at the time, and somehow they found out that he was having an affair. She was having an affair at the time, but she gave birth to a son. That son was our last victim. So they go ahead and they go to this house. Door's already open. They knock, and everything's packed up. And you see this older gentleman that's sitting there, Larry Wells, and he goes ahead. He holds his hands up. He was ready to be caught. Yeah, well, it had to be the last. I was getting on in years, and this is a better retirement than any other plan, going ahead and going to prison for the rest of his life. And this will be his legacy. But Will goes ahead and comes in and says, yeah, well, we went ahead and looked. You kind of killed off your own legacy. The man you killed was your son. 40 years ago, that woman knew that Larry had something wrong with him, and so raised Joel Summers as the son of his first victim, and he killed him. And he kind of just hits the arm of the chair. That's it. But yeah, no, I really like this scene. Was really good. It just
that's Lance Henriksen.
Yeah.
That means nothing to you, though, because you're the young 20-something Gen Z guy. He's like, oh gosh, what was he born in the 40s? So he's got to be 75-ish here and all that. He's still very active. He's been on stuff. He was the alien in the alien. He was the robot in the second Aliens movie. And in the third,
Okay.
him and Bill Paxton are the only people that have been killed by an alien, a Terminator, and something else, whatever, or whatever. I remembered that was like a big deal. This guy was the one that was in the show that I still think is better than Millennium, or better than, it's called Millennium. I think it's better than the X-Files, even though X-Files was fun and lasted longer. It's the darker one that the creator left to go do. And I was like, man, oh man, they got Lance in here, and he's an old, frail old man, and he gives him a speech about, yeah, I ain't got that kind of fight in me anymore, or whatever. And then basically, again, talking about roles, I think it's very clear here that they're starting to use that language where Will basically starts to berate him almost about how he didn't, about what his legacy is. He's not going to be able to, have that now because as a father, he fucked it up, by killing his own son,
Yeah.
even though he didn't know it. And he just looks like, oh, fuck. Because he's like, yeah. The creepy line, though, the Lance does so good. He mentioned a comment about, look around you. I ain't got a lot. I don't care if I die in prison. It'll be much better than this place here or whatever. And no one will leave me alone in that. And I ain't got no money or whatever. But then he starts snotting off about, it's like to be able to talk to that lady in church knowing I killed her husband and all this and that. You're like, man, you're fucked in the head, Lance. You're such a good man. You're right. He just killed it. He crushed it. Scene after scene, great scenes, individual. I've heard described sometimes a movie is nothing more than a bunch of good scenes with no bad scenes. And sometimes if they're great, then you've got something. And that's what this episode felt like, because you realize here at the end, okay, I didn't really need that much here. I just needed an example of the totem pole to talk about families because it's legacy, right? And again, like I said before at the beginning of this episode 9 review, we're going to go into 10 here in a moment. The whole idea of this disassociated family together, the serial killer of the week, if you want to call it that, is probably a one-off here with Lance because he got arrested. My only problem with this episode was the logistics of how do you pull up a totem pole weighing, hundreds of pounds, maybe 1,000 or two with, the dried bodies and, being, frozen and all that were dug out all around it. That were on this beach and all that. Nothing got there. That's like Scream where, the girl gets hanged real quick early on. It was a 2-person job, not a one. But you know what? I'm willing to let it slide for the complete awesomeness that is this episode here. And absolutely fantastic. Final thoughts?
We have to talk about the last scene.
Let's do it.
Yeah, for this episode, after Will goes ahead and they solve that, but something is sitting wrong with him. He goes ahead and he goes to the body of Nicholas Boyle. He does his little
Mm-hmm.
And first he's the stabber, and then he's the stabby. And who does he see? He sees Abigail Hobbs. And he goes ahead to Hannibal and says, I know she killed him. And he goes ahead and says, well, yes, and you know too. Yeah, I helped her bury the body. Oh, okay. They go ahead.
Before you go any further,
yes,
I wanted to ask you because it's something we talked about before, and I ranted about it because this show makes me rant in a good way. So Will is in this scene aware that Hannibal knew about this all along, and was a participant in it, for lack of a better description. I think we could agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Will looks like he's getting ready to process and all that. But the fact that it was that Hannibal did not mention any of this to Will, what do you make of that? In terms of lying or anything else? Because that's where I was going to go with it.
Oh, Will understands. I mean, Will understands why, though.
But at the very beginning, without knowing what the reasoning is, which is what the rest of the scene is, yes, and I help blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. He's very open. He's trying to, yeah.
It's the only play that Hannibal has if he doesn't want to kill him, at least at this point, I think. And honestly, it's what we would call lying by omission, which everybody does. It's some people call it lying because they say, well, lying is deceitful in its nature. I don't know that he's deceiving Will so much as he's not giving him all the information. And that's one of the classic examples of, like I say, it's one thing to talk about body language and read people in clusters and baselines and all that stuff. It's another thing to do the exact same thing in a verbal way. And just like I had mentioned before with Abigail Hubbs, the scene before, Crawford's good at it from the lying the lying detection part to it, because she didn't really say no, and family denied it. And she looked around it, and we see some other examples in this episode of those things, and that's how they can tell, because there are language aspects when things go on, and you can't really control it, even as good as you are. But Hannibal isn't going, I have no idea what you're talking about, and looking at him and acting well. But here's the thing that makes the scene is that he agrees with it and then explains it to him. So if you're going to lie, by withholding the truth, that's a gray area, I think, for a lot of people. But he goes into explaining to Will why, and in doing so, he's doing it in a constructive manner of basically saying, we are now going to be her parents. We know what this is. Here's the moral differences. And he walks up to him, puts his hand on his shoulder. So absolutely, you're right, 100%, really significant kind of scene here too. It's, man, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. And ultimately, because Hannibal, I love the line, do I need to call my lawyer? And Will.
But you know what? That's a great question.
Yeah.
Because right now, he's not giving Will time to intellectually sit back, remove himself emotionally from the situation. Remember, he's fucked in the head anyway, to make what we would call in the real world the right and appropriate decision. So in the next episode, I think we'll talk a little bit more about something called the amygdala, which is like a filter in the front of your forehead. It there's when you experience something, it goes through two pathways in your brain. One is the bypasses everything, and it's that kind of fight or flight. It's that part of your brain, the lizard part, that you react instantaneously. But there's the intellectual side that takes a few microseconds longer, and so that's where, as an adult, you learn to filter things out and do that. By him doing that with Will, he's not giving Will a chance for the full emotional, oh my fucking God, you lied to me. You withheld this from me. You're involved in it. Where could this go? And you start catastrophizing, all these negative events that were like that. He's guiding him emotionally and intellectually to what the right thing is, and he lets Will pick it out. That's why he's such a smooth bastard verbally with this guy. Because even though right at the end of here, there's the little brief thing with Freddie Lowndes' dinner and him actually talking with Abigail in there, I'm telling you, this is the family thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, no. And we do get one dinner scene with after that, where they go ahead and they eat with Freddie Lowndes and discuss what's to come of the book. It passes quickly. We get it in the kitchen where Abigail goes ahead and she's helping Hannibal clean up, and she knows that Will knows. She can tell, and then she admits that she did help get those girls killed, because she knew ultimately it was them or her.
Abigail Hawes was pulling for her father, and I don't mean
Yep.
pulling pussy, like, which is the term used for pulling, like, you're my wee man, I'll pull something or whatever like that. And it's like, and then they do the little flashback where they, in the black and white, where they see them on the train with the girl and all that. I'm like, fuck yeah, this is good, because she duped me all along, where I kind of believed all that. I just thought she was a smart girl and kind of sassy. You know what? I don't know if you can hear me. Let me try to do it close to the mic. You hear me clapping?
Yes.
Well done, Abigail Hubbs, actress. Bravo. Good on you, girl. You got me, and I didn't think I could get gotten, but once in a while I can. And the whole thing about it too is Hannibal knew all along.
Yep. I wondered when you would tell me.
Yeah.
And he holds her close. Let's go ahead, let her just have her moment. And now we get to go to the next episode, which thankfully I feel like this one's going to actually go by quicker. Because like this entire opening, it is long and drawn out. It's entertaining to watch. But you get this woman, she gets home, there's something creaking in the shed over there. What could it be? She goes inside, gets ready for bed, goes to bed, and then she notices some dripping, so she has to go up into the attic. There's a hole in the roof, and they go ahead, they pan outside so you can see that there were footprints. Dun, dun, dun. And then
Were they reindeer footprints?
no.
Oh,
No.
okay. Because it was snowing.
I can see where you got confused there. You see, but death isn't a gift, and that's what this woman's about to be given. As she covers it up, she goes back down. She notices wet footprints. She goes to the bed. A hand goes out, grabs her, pulls her in, and that's that.
The blood splatter, from underneath it, that was a pretty
right,
good gesture
wicked,
there.
right?
That's someone just shattered the blood sauce squeezer, really, really hard there. I was like, man, that was pretty good. They probably had several takes to get that.
Yeah. And after that, we go ahead. We get Will talking to Hannibal. Still talking about Abigail and talking about how he is having these gaps of time. He's losing time. Hannibal goes ahead and looks at him and says, okay, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to draw a clock face for me with the time. Go ahead and say who you are, write it down. And that's what he does. He goes ahead, writes it. He sees a clock, he draws it, and then hands it back. And it's a circle, but all of the numbers are falling off of the side.
Yeah, brain damage. And I think here, too, I remember hearing some stuff like this in psychology classes in college and stuff like that, too. So it was nice because this is a precedent for what the rest of the episode is going to be about. Like, you perceive the world in a certain way. What's the actual reality of it? Well, your perception is your reality, but for somebody else, it's not. You can get like the physics aspect of it too. The act of observing something disturbs what it is, and so what's real. And then you can argue like probability and metaphysics and all that bullshit. But it is like a continuation. So I agree with you. I think it kind of like carries the momentum of the last one. Will's sitting there and he's like doing a little fishing on his off time. We haven't seen his dogs, but we will see them later in this episode. And he goes to gut and clean a fish at home, and he's freaking out. So basically, he's getting these stressors, and so he's stressing out, and we see where he's the one gutting this girl and freaking out. And it's literally a bloody mess. This is probably singular the bloodiest amount of pooling that we see in it. And then when he comes to, he's fucked up the crime scene, and this has never happened before, and everyone's looking at him here too. So they're in the middle of looking all this, and Crawford looks at him, doesn't say anything, just walks outside. It's snowing. This is a beautiful, nice little touch here. I just love the way the look of the show and all that too. It's very somber and all that, and I love again Fishburne's acting, basically saying, hey, I've seen you angry, I've seen you upset, I've never seen you scared, and I saw that look on your face when you came out. And it's the back and forth about what's going on in there, and it's just nice verbal writing and going back and forth. And I almost think that he's like almost not feeling sorry for him, but getting more paternal. He's like, have I broken you? And he's not like yelling at him like, get your ass in there like that. And he has a great line in there that ends it where he goes, fear will make you rude, Will, and then walks off while Will goes back in there to check it out too. I don't know that I care too much about, the death in here, but the interaction was very, very top notch. What did you think?
Yeah, no, that's, I am in agreement. But I do love that when he goes ahead and cuts open that fish afterwards, and the blood is far too much blood is pulling out. When he's in reality, he's contaminated the damn crime scene.
Yeah.
The blood is on his hands, and he opens the door, and the look that they have whenever he's coming out of there, it is...
That's why you're watching.
Yeah. True. He's truly frightened. We're truly frightened. And, he goes ahead and tries to apologize to Jack for it, but Jack is very, very concerned about Will. After that, we get Will going back to Hannibal and saying that, hey, with this happening, there's something that I feel is wrong with me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a tumor. Maybe something is wrong. And so they go ahead and they go to a friend of Hannibal's, a Dr. Sutcliffe.
Not Rick Sutcliffe from the Cubs. That reference is lost on you, but that's for our one baseball fan we might have.
They put him in an MRI machine, and he goes ahead. He's having hallucinations of being underneath the victim, Beth LeBeau's bed. And they go ahead and they're looking at on the screen, and they know that something is off. What did they say it is again?
It's a certain type of encephalitis.
Yes. And they talk about how
infected.
There's not usually a chance to go ahead and check these things thoroughly and go ahead and study it. And so after he comes out and they tell him, "You're fine. Totally normal." And that is not what he wanted to hear.
Well, say that again.
I said that's not what he wanted to hear.
Who's he?
Will.
Oh, well, here's the thing. It's a nice little setup because the neurologist take to is somebody that he knows back when they were in Johns Hopkins. And there's some professional back and forth between those two about how he was more interested in how the mind works rather than, or how the mind deals with reality rather than how the brain physically functions, because those are two separate things. Psychiatry and psychology are different aspects, and so obviously they know each other. And he's like, "Yeah, back when you were afraid to get your hands dirty," and so they're going to go in there. And again, I don't really care about Will, what he's picturing and all that too, but when they're talking to it and the guy's reminded of Hannibal's sense of smell that's really acute, and he talks about how it has a certain sweetness to it or whatever, and he goes, "Well, what do you smell?" I mean, and he goes, "Opportunity." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what are they fucking gonna do here? They're not gonna let him know that his brain's literally fucked up. They could get treatment and be fine." So now, whether this is in line with the books or not, I don't even care about that. I felt that Hannibal was really generally seeing him as a friend. So in my mind, that's being the case, I think he would want Will to get fixed a little bit, because if anybody's going to fuck with Will, it's going to be him, not something outside Hannibal's control, like a disease that he has here, encephalitis. And then I thought the doctor that played him looks like a doctor. Him looking him straight in the face and saying, "Well, we really don't have anything here, but we'll run some more tests and we'll take some more blood samples, but they'll probably just not, be conclusive or whatever." So it's basically reaffirming what Hannibal had told him earlier to Will. He goes like, "Hey, Will, you want it to be something like this physically because it's an easy answer for what you're going through." But here's the thing with really good psychiatrists or listeners. It's one thing to communicate with somebody and say yes, no, and be specific. But when you take the position of being the superior in a relationship, usually some resentment is caused because it's now like a vertical relationship where you're above somebody and somebody feels like they're below, whether it's intentional or not. And there's personality traits and all that stuff that goes into it. The thing that Hannibal does really well here that makes everybody get along with him well and nobody suspects him of anything or distrusts him is, one, he listens, says a lot less than the other person. And if there's something Hannibal's trying to do, he's letting you come to your own conclusion, even if he's asking you the questions might lead you to there. And that's exactly what it says here to the guy. He doesn't say, "You're going to do this," or I'll release those pictures of you screwing the nurse or whatever. It's just, I smell opportunity. And it's just, as doctors, we have to judge, the value of researching something versus treatment, and he's letting it be out there what we would call like third person. And it's interesting because Jack is so concerned that he's now sitting down enjoying like a glass of brandy with Hannibal, talking about Will and everything too. And he's basically telling him, "Hey, Jack, when you take him to a crime scene, the very air has screams smeared into it. And in those places, he doesn't just reflect, he absorbs." And basically what it is in your brain, you have these certain types of, I'm going to call them neurons, so I may have it completely wrong. They mention it in here somewhere, that as you're developing, that's why the goo goo gaga talk with the maternal instinct growing up is because babies can't necessarily see too well, but they can vocalize a bit and they're imitating stuff. the brain's very active in that regard and has all these excess of these neurons, because that's how helps you form the bonds there as you're developing as a baby. And then when you get older and you go through like puberty and you become a young adult, once the mid-20s, when the brain stops developing normally, a lot of them go away. But unfortunately for Will, he still has them all, so he's overly empathic. So call it the origin story, if you will, in a scientific way. I don't know that the books cover that, but it explains what he's going through and makes me go, okay, Will, stop being a bitch, because I get it. And your brain's fucked up. You got encephalitis, bro. All right, so let me stop there and pause, sir. Continue, please.
Well, after this, Will goes ahead to Beth LeBeau's house again and looks at the crime scene. Still blood on the ground. And he's looking over it, and he notices something or someone underneath the bed, and kind of pulls away. And he goes to look down. This person pushes up the entire bed at him and runs. Will makes a grab at her hand, and the skin of the entire arm just peels right off. I thought he must be imagining it. I thought it can't be real. But he goes ahead, he does that time thing where he goes ahead and says, "My name is Will Graham. It's 10 o'clock. Here I am." And then in a blink of an eye, he's outside. He looks at the time. Oh, crap. It's 1 a.m. I'm Will Graham. I know you're out here somewhere.
That's the anchor Hannibal showed him when he did the clock test, the drawing. So he's doing that out there in real time and out in the field.
And then we go ahead and we cut right back into the same house as Beverly joins Will to talk about it, because he is certain that part was real. What did you do with the skin? I don't know.
It's bad when you misplace a forearm skin.
Yeah. But they go ahead and they know that the killer was cut during the crime, but never bled. So it might make sense that the skin would peel off like that. And it would also explain why the killer was trying to cut off Beth's face, because they're having a hard time distinguishing faces. The killer came back to make sure that they hadn't committed the crime, just like Will had done. And they go ahead and they have a talk. They say a lot about you at the FBI and everything like that. But it's a good scene. I do like having more of her around. But here's the thing. We talk about how, and I think Will says something along the lines that he picks up strays.
Mm-hmm.
He's now being followed.
Yeah. Haven't quite figured Beverly out yet, but to me, it's very clear that both those women are angling for him. Everybody's angling for Will, and I don't see it, but I guess he's the only eligible guy. So, if you're the only guy, you're going to have your pick of the litter in a room full of women, right? You know what I'm saying? That's just how it goes. It's a resource thing. That's how it goes. When he's in there talking with Hannibal right after the scene, he's like, there's, I guess, Cotard's, I think is the name of it, Cotard syndrome, where people can't see faces and all that. He's talked about it, and Will's drawing the circle, and we, from his perspective, see it as being normal. So at this point now, because I can't trust what Hannibal's doing, whether or not he made that up on his own and drew it, I can't really say. But this is where he talks about the amygdala and, those kinds of things. And he gives him basically the essence of how it is there too. And this is the chemistry these guys have just in terms of trying to solve what the current case is. Because it's obviously something like this. Because I was wondering, I didn't really care much about the killer anyway. It's like, it looked like Ringu or one of those Japanese things from the late 90s or whatever, the way the girl looks because she's so weak and all that. But yeah, we see this really horrible face kind of staring at him in the window and everything too. But the thing is the girl's mom comes in there in the FBI and they talk to her and she's like, "I'm so glad you guys reached out. I don't want her to be in pain and all that." And they're like basically trying to say, hey, this person knew Beth, what's going on. They talk about being like friends and all that. So they go through this whole thing about whatever, but it's basically about her saying, the mother saying here that, well, we tried going to doctors. Nobody could really find anything. It's just really about managing expectations. I mean, and this episode more so than the last one to me, Pixel, really just hits the nail on the head here with a hammer big time about how whatever investigation that's currently going on, except for the meta arc with Abigail, but even then it still happens, about what's going on also in their relationships, just that duality stuff. Yes, he collects strays. Maybe the women here do collect strays and they see Will as a stray. Maybe Jack Crawford sees Will as a stray. I really don't know yet, where it's going. It's only season 1. There's 3 seasons. But I like the verbalizing talking here because this is the essence of this episode. It's about how you deal with mental trauma. It's the same thing that Will's going through, right? It wasn't particularly exciting or engaging, but we've seen this before with a parent talking about somebody before. We saw a wife or a couple of episodes ago talking about her husband and all that too, the guy that was setting people on fire and all that too. So
Yeah.
It's interesting because, again, you're not dealing with the person that's committing the acts directly. It's all about how it affects everything else in their life, and that's something that I always prefer, always like seeing. We mentioned Lance Henriksen last episode. He was in an episode or a show of Millennium, came out after the X-Files, where that was kind of the same thing, where somebody might have been screwed up. So how does it affect people? You figure all this out, and the evil is your brain filling in those gaps here too. So we're getting that with trauma in this episode.
Yes. But you know what else we're getting in this episode?
The ending.
Dinner scenes.
Yes. Someone's gonna die.
Hannibal goes ahead and invites the doctor to dinner, and they talk about
Picture from the Cubs, Rick Sutcliffe.
Yes, with Sutcliffe. How long are you going to let him go on this way? How far do you want to let him go? And he says, "Will is my friend. We'll go as far as we need to. And then when it's necessary, we'll pull him out." And the doctor says, "Well, he wants some more tests." So late at night at the hospital, Sutcliffe lets Will in. They put him in an MRI machine, and he goes ahead. He goes in. Eventually, it comes out, and Sutcliffe isn't anywhere to be found. Will kind of gets up, and he puts on his clothes. He's like, I don't know what happened. I guess the doctor's gone. But as he's about to walk out, he notices a door handle to Dr. Sutcliffe's office with blood on it. He uses the sleeve of his coat to open it up, and his face cut half off is Dr. Sutcliffe there. And they go ahead, they quickly get people to the scene, and they talk about it. Well, there's so much mess here, and you're obviously so clean that it couldn't have been you. Don't worry, Will. We got to Will that night, and guess who's under his bed? But the girl they're after, Georgia. And he says, "You're alive," and does this reaching moment towards her. They get her out. They put her into this pod where she'll recover.
Allegedly.
No, at least somewhat physically.
Looks like 2 different actresses, because the one in the pod looks almost hot, when she gets her skin back on. No, I just
until she turns her face and looks at her.
Exactly.
But we get Jack and Hannibal talking about her, and Hannibal says, "Well, I look forward to speaking with her after. I want to see what she remembers."
Mm-hmm. Why, sir?
Because we get
why, sir?
Cut back to that night where she was walking in, and she sees the door to the office. She opens it up, and who's cutting off Dr. Sutcliffe's face? Cutting it back? But Hannibal.
And his kill suit. Yep. I love it.
Yep.
Yep.
And because she can't identify faces, they do this weird CGI thing that makes his face all sunken in, so you don't see any eyes or mouth or anything.
It's like Man in the Box by Alice in Chains, where they sew his eyes shut and his lips. It almost looks like that. It's kind of cool and kind of stupid at the same time. That's a 90s reference.
Yeah. This is a solid episode. This is a really solid episode. I think I like this one actually more than the last one.
I think you're high as fuck because there's no way in hell. And the
Yeah,
reason why,
no,
honestly,
I like the descent into madness. I
can appreciate that as much as the next guy, except you.
I didn't say the other one was bad.
I know that, but you liked it better. Here's the thing. I'm all for Will going for a second opinion, because when he was talking with Hannibal there, he's like, you wouldn't publish anything about me now, would you? Because so he's starting to suspect stuff. So we're starting to get these seeds planted, right? And I like the assertiveness of bringing it up and having a conversation. And again, he's not lying. He goes, he basically says something along the lines, if there was something that would benefit other people, I would do it in such an abstract way nobody would ever know. Okay, that's fair enough. And but the whole thing of this girl following him, and she's like, jaundiced or whatever like that, malnourished, and somehow I just don't like the logistics of this either, where somehow she got into the hole in the roof and it was underneath there and this, and it just didn't really work for me. And the whole thing here at the end, it's like, where are they going with it? She walks in, Hannibal hands her the scissors to do all that. We just got done with this fantastic episode before with Abigail Hobbs and all that. Did you really need to branch out and do it again with another chick? I don't know, man. It was a bit of a, really, that's it? There's a great Peggy something used to say, Peggy Lee sang back in the day, is that all there is? Because this last episode, the ending of it was a letdown to me. I did like it. I think it was solid. I do agree, but it was not the tour de force episode before was. But I do feel that they both have this in common. Things are picking up a lot. We're getting the key relationships moving in the right direction here with only 3 episodes left. Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Really solid. Really great. I am enjoying this immensely. The doctor's voice reminds me of James Spader's a little bit.
Okay.
That was just something that I remember. I was trying to remember the name of James Spader, but just a little thing. Because when you're not looking directly, you go ahead and you get that cadence that carries in the way that he spoke. And now his tongue is pretty much half ripped out, so no more talking.
Yeah, it's got to go somewhere. 3 more episodes left. Let's just hope they keep the momentum up. But yeah, to me, again, the last thing I can say about these 2 episodes together is this is when the show really becomes the show, which is Hannibal. It's not Will Graham.
That's true.
So I do like that a lot. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing.
All right. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Season 1, episodes 9 and 10 of Hannibal. Check it out now. It's showing on Amazon Prime, I believe, here in the United States.
And Tube, or no, not Tubi anymore.
Well, they bounce around, so it depends on when you listen to it and all that. But check it out. It's 3 seasons. We're doing the first season right now. Fantastic stuff. Great watching. It's probably about as good as you get for TV for the most part. I mean, Twin Peaks is a little weird, and that might be more high art than this is, but this is just very well done, high crafted. It's just such a joy to watch and listen to and just dive right into as we're doing here. And we'll continue for our final 3 more episodes here in a short future. For Professor Pixel and everybody involved here at the Extreme Movie Show, good night now.
Good evening.